Welcome back to Voice Global. I am your host, Pete Erickson, and we are continuing our chat series with influencers and leaders from around the globe. Our next guest is somebody I've known for a few years. Since I first got into this space, actually, I've known him for 4 years. We're from the same region. I'm in the Washington, D.C. region. I live in Arlington. Ahmed and I are not too far apart. But he is, as the voice space is evolving, the way I like to position and talk about our next guest is he is an audio entrepreneur more than anything. He's been was involved with Alexa very early inside of Amazon. He since has stepped out and has built his own platform. He's built an organization that is all about audio and voice enablement. That company is called Witlingo. My next guest is Ahmed Bouzid. Ahmed, welcome to the stage here at Voice Global. It's so great to see you.
It's great. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Pete. 4 years, huh? Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Time flies when you're having fun. I mean, it's crazy. 4 years and one pandemic later.
We've survived it.
Yeah, one pandemic, one coup, but we won't get into the politics. We won't get into the politics of it.
I mean, what is going to be easy compared to what we've survived, right?
Yeah.
And then
I definitely am looking forward to the return, to some sense of normalcy where, we're planning our live events again.
Yeah.
And it is an opportunity to, re-enter the market, if you will. But I think one thing that's interesting with you specifically is we've been, obviously, I think 2021 is kind of the year of audio in many ways. I mean, it's just the audio explosion, right? With Clubhouse and with so much going on. And you and I recently been talking a lot about audio, and you've even built a new service. And I love the term that you coined about this. Before we go into the details on that, though, tell us a little bit about Witlingo, about the company, and then we're going to go into this really cool area to talk about audio.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so we are based in the DC area in McLean, Virginia, just a couple of miles from where Pete and his team
that's right. Not far.
Exactly. And so we launched in 2016, focused mainly on this thing called Alexa. At the time, there was no Google, and then a year later, Google came into the scene. And the excitement was all about the opportunity, which I think is still there. And I think it will continue to evolve. The opportunity to enable folks to engage in conversations with a bot, with a voice bot. Up to that point, you really didn't have conversations. What you had was Siri, where you give it a command and it give you a response. And that's it, right? But the prospect of having back and forth conversations was exciting and remains exciting. What seems to have happened is things are taking a longer time to happen in terms of adoption. So brands adopting it, we're seeing brands adopting it, and there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, but certainly not at the scale that we were hoping and expecting the growth to be. So, for instance, we're talking about maybe 100,000 skills at most, right? As opposed to 4 or 5 years after the smartphone came out and the iPhone, where we were talking about millions and millions, right?
Right.
So clearly, it's an order of magnitude less. Now, there are many reasons, I think, why that's the case, and I don't want to get into them, other than saying that voice has always been a challenging interface. It's just hard to deliver a great experience. And so I think the community is just in the process of learning, and I think we will see that hockey stick happen, soon, right?
Right.
I think it's just taking time for a community that was just used to building voice and touch based interfaces, and we made a lot of mistakes in terms of building interfaces that were not really highly usable. The use cases were not clear, but there's been a lot of learning the last 4 years, and if you see the last couple of years, a lot of places that teach you how to do voice user interface design are emerging. I mean, really solid stuff is going on out there. And that's new, actually. That's new. So I think we've been going through a lot of learning, and I think the fruits of those learning will yield themselves coming soon. So anyway, in that process, and we continue to do Alexa and all that, but in the process, we've learned a lot about how people use audio and how audio can deliver value. And in 2019, we were starting to touch on this social audio thing when we launched something that we called at the time Witlingo communities, right? So it
Hmm.
had to do with launching a skill and hearing other people say things, right?
Yes.
And you being able to record that thing using mobile app, right? So it was so the ethos was there already, and we were not the only ones who were touching on that. The ethos of people being able to express themselves by voice and hearing other people say things by voice, right? And that was 2019, and then in 2020 you had the beginnings of Clubhouse, right? I
Hmm.
think they launched their beta in the early 2020, January or so. That was just when the pandemic was hitting, and so the ethos was there. The pandemic, I think, accelerated the value of being able to do things without having to look at the screen, because people are looking at the screen all day long. So being able to disconnect from the screen and just have the earbuds and walk around the house or go outside for a walk and listen to other people talk became an interesting value proposition. Plus, I think they had time to explore
Right.
that they didn't have before. So they didn't have to commute, and they didn't have to all kinds of all kinds of time freed up, right? Anyway, so we took that Alexa centric idea, and we moved to saying, why are we hooking it up to only Alexa? Why can't it be something that you can use anywhere, right?
Right.
On the smartphone and on your speaker as well. And so we came up with this thing called audio stations.
Audio stations. And I love that term. So an audio station is something where you could have your own bespoke content on your site. Somebody could click on that station and just hear the audio that's coming out. So it's a little like
Exactly.
your own customized radio station, but it's an
Hmm.
audio experience. So in our case, with
Yep.
a conference, it could be audio of talks. Um, and as opposed to just watching a video, you can click in and suddenly you can listen to somebody's conversation.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And one like the lowest hanging fruit. We're just launching this, so we're in learning beta mode, right? So
Right.
the lowest hanging fruit we've discovered right now is audio testimonials, right?
Right.
So you ask. So I am a fan of Voice Global and Voice Summit, right? And I've been going to your conference for the longest time. So I could go and record 30 seconds of me saying good things about you,
Yeah.
right? And your conference. And you can send an email, say, please leave a voice testimonial. And when somebody goes to your website, and this is one thing we learned, is that marketers' website is the center of their life, right?
Right.
Social media, all of it is part of it, but the website is very important. So you go
Right.
there and you're able to listen to testimonials as you're looking at the web page.
Hmm.
So as opposed to say a video or text testimonials where people are reading, right? Here you're listening and you're going up and down a page, and you're able to do those two things at the same time. And then also voice, right? You're hearing the person's character and emotions, and when somebody expresses their appreciation of you using their voice, right? That's sort of more compelling than text only, and it's less heavy than of an ask than a video. So
Right.
if you ask me, can you record a video? It's a big, I love you and I will do it, right? I would do it, but it's an ask that's heavy.
Right.
Um, but if you just say, can you go ahead and just record 30 seconds of you saying something good about us? I would
Right.
do it. I would do it
Right.
in a heartbeat, right? And
Yeah.
most people would do it who have a relationship with you. So that thing, that balance, or that sort of the biggest bang for your effort, right, is what makes, I believe, audio so compelling. So
Yeah.
text is easy; you just type. Video is heavy, but it has a lot of value because it
Right.
expresses, voice. And
Sure.
but audio is a lot of bang for the effort of 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we're going to do with the content from this event is this will be reproduced as a podcast episode as well. So we're going to push out not only the video content in this interview, but we're going to push out the audio of this interview
Yeah,
as well, just
absolutely.
because
You should.
it's a bigger ask for people to listen or to play a video and listen to it.
Yeah,
But if they're just playing the audio, then yeah,
yeah,
sure, it's a much lower lift. You bring up a really great point, and I think that one of the things that I believe is the voice tech industry. Audio is a massive. It's actually it could be the biggest part of the voice tech industry
I
that's
agree.
really
I
yet
agree.
to be realized.
I agree, and I think that's an interesting it's a revelation to us. Like it was just
Right.
it's right in front of us, under our nose, and we were way too focused on the conversational. which is actually, again, I think that's going to
Right.
remain. There's a lot of value there. But I think what happened in 2020, 2021, it's just a much bigger pie has revealed itself to all of us.
One of the things so it's fun to talk to somebody who's just got so much background in history in the space. You've been front and center on it, and it seems to me that we're really while we're talking about audio, the piece that comes into this is interaction. So now being able to actually interact with that audio content. So as I'm listening to something, being able to interact. This also brings up advertising. I would love to get your take, Ahmed, on the ad space and interactive ads, and get your thoughts on that. Have you looked at it at all? I know you've been working on a number of different things and initiatives, kind of across the board. But what do you think about interactive advertising and where that's going to go in the next year to 3 years?
Yeah. Well, I think like any advertising, for it to be successful, right? Especially in audio, it needs to be highly contextualized. Number one, right? So you need to be hitting the right people, and then at the right time, with the right message, with the right offer, for them to invest in a back and forth. Because again, back and forth is asking. It's an ask that's more than listen. So you're asking them to take a deep breath and to speak and to interrupt whatever thoughts they had, and just get involved in a conversation. And remember, a conversation is very time interlaced, right? It's time dependent. So basically, I can't do anything else when I'm talking to the robot. I cannot look at my text. I'm just, I need to focus, right? So therefore, it's really important for this to take off, for it to be done well. And it's hard. It's hard to do it well. But I think all the elements are there for this to be done well, meaning context, where they are, what they're doing. Hopefully you have a history of what they like and what they don't like, right? And so it's all about doing it in a way that is going to not be a backlash, not result in a backlash, right?
Sure.
Because I can easily see somebody. That's my nervousness here is somebody goes and tries to do it and does it in the wrong way, and then the whole thing gets contaminated by that experience, especially if it's a big brand.
Well, certainly. I mean, the last thing a marketer wants to do is have a bad experience. I mean, the very definition of user experience is that we are using and experiencing something that makes us feel smarter and more empowered. Yeah. And I think that, knowing, those two things, if an audio ad experience makes us feel dumber and stuck, then that's not going to be a good one at all. Exactly. So I think what you're saying is where I think this goes is, interactive ads. And we've been talking about this with a number of our guests and folks from the broadcast and media space, because I'm curious, to get their sentiments on when and where does this really start. I think there's some early experimentation going on with ads on smart devices, but there will be a day, Ahmed, there will be a day where we're listening to an ad for a particular service or maybe for a car, where it'll be just natural to say, I'm interested, tell me more about this. And all of a sudden you kind of maybe go into an area where you can discover more. Yeah. But I think a lot has to happen until we get there. I think until we get there, just interacting with audio, going back to that discussion, one nice thing I think that this space has done is we have learned enough about conversation design, managing intents, to be able to help people even manage the listening experience. So it could be pause, could just be, hey, can go back. I want to hear this again. I want to hear that. I want to hear this conversation again, or can you back up 30 seconds? Being able to say that things and interact with audio, so we don't have to, we're not looking down at a smartphone, hitting pause or going back, hitting the 50-second back key. Yeah. What do you think of that from a standpoint of that might be, the first iteration of audio engagement and interaction?
Yeah. I think that's a possibility. And again, I think the value is there. I think designing it well is going to be crucial. Now, when somebody and when somebody's listening to something, a podcast, usually they don't want to do anything unless they have to. Okay. So now, if somebody's listening to a podcast while lying down through a smart speaker, then they'll be able to do that kind of stuff where they need to pause by just saying pause or go back 15
Yeah.
seconds, right? The question is, how many people do that? How many people listen to podcasts doing that, as opposed to the way I do it, even though I'm a big fan of smart speakers, is I use my smartphone and I just listen to it that way,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Of course.
So I think for it to be done well, we need for it to take off. I think we need to see two things. One is we need to see more more listening of these podcasts and this content through smart speakers, because that way you're eyes free, hands free. And number two, it needs to be done really, really well. I think one low hanging fruit, which I'm surprised has not happened yet, although I've heard here and there, which is in a radio commercial or in a podcast, you have a call to action that says, if you want to find out more, just say this to your smart speaker, right? So it's sort of it's there, it's available for you, right, to do that, and then it doesn't disrupt the experience for your podcast. I haven't seen as much of that as I thought I would, but I think that's going to happen because I'm seeing it here and there. Still not as much, but still, I think I see it happening slowly but surely.
You know, I can attest to myself. I'm an old guy, and I have old habits, and my habits are I tap, swipe, and pinch. My kids who are 9 and 10, they talk. They're very used to it. They even are, you know, they talk to their desktop computers that they're using for school. Anywhere they can use the voice interface, they're using the voice interface. So when they go to Google, they tell Google what they're looking for. And I'm like on my desktop. I mean, I pull up a search bar and I type in what I'm looking for. So I think what's going to happen is this is a voice first generation coming up, and that's going to drive a lot of this kind of engagement where right now we're really in the experimentation phase. I want to go back to that term audio station. I really think it's interesting. Is this would be a fit? It seems like a natural fit for the broadcast industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you're doing broadcasting through regular radio or you're doing a podcast, right? You can have a call to action that says, "Go over there and tell me what you think," right? And as opposed to Clubhouse, which I use very often, as well as Twitter Spaces. The difference is that in Clubhouse, it's a synchronous event, right? So everybody is at the same place at the same time. It's time boxed, and then people are. It's free flowing conversation, and if you're up on the stage, you get to talk, and people are listening to you live, and so on. What we're offering is something where it's more like passing the mic around, right?
Right.
So I speak and I say my piece, my 30 seconds, whatever. And then I pass the mic to the next person who wants to say something, right?
Yep.
And there are many use cases. So the one I mentioned about testimonials is very interesting to the digital marketer because it allows them to do things like retain people in the page longer because they're listening, right?
Yeah.
It enables them to engage their customers, right? But there are other use cases like fans of of a team, right? Or politics, right? Or like one of the folks we're talking to is C-SPAN, right? C-SPAN has if people know what C-SPAN is just a place where you listen to a lot of political stuff, right? So congressmen come, and then people call in. Some people call in and they try for years and years to get through. Right. And once they get through, oh, that's great. It's an event, and they are told, okay, wonderful. Please call again in a month, right? Don't call again. Just give a chance to other people. So here, we're allowing folks to be able to do sort of a call in, but in a 2.0 version, right?
Right.
Where you're able to go record in some, on your website or on the phone and say your piece, and then hear the other folks what they have to say about the topic. Yeah.
Right. So in that case, so everybody gets, you can leave your piece, and then somebody can listen to that audio at some point and listen to what everybody else is saying, as opposed to having there be a gatekeeper who decides who to let through.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some predictions and kind of like where things go and what 2022 might look like. Certainly the pandemic drove our business, drove the voice tech industry in a big way. There was a real need to address a number of things. I mean, so many people being at home, just the use of the devices went up. We're getting back to work, we're getting back out there, so some of that use might start to go down. However, I think I think the importance for the industry is going to be, um, you know, evolving to that next level of engagement and interaction. What are some of the things you're seeing that you think are going to come to fruition in 2022 in the voice tech landscape?
Yeah. Well, I remain bullish and optimistic about the conversational world. Right? I think there are some key. I'm hoping that Amazon and Google solve some key issues that just mess up the experience. Like an
Mm-hmm.
example would be something like, you know, you say Alexa, right, and then she listens, right, and I have to hurry. I have to hurry and
Mm-hmm.
say what I have to say, right. It gives me only,
Yep.
and so I'm always under pressure, and that it shouldn't be like that. That's one.
Right.
Another one would be something along the lines of I'm talking to you and I say something like black stuff, right? And then Alexa wakes up. Like it
Mm-hmm.
thought I said Alexa, right? So the false accept, so to speak. So there are like some core problems
You
that
think
just
you think the big evolution is really going to be in user experience. It's going to be
absolutely, absolutely,
it's going to be about really
yeah,
improving the experience next year, and that's where
absolutely,
this all this collective knowledge of the last 5 or 6 years is really
exactly,
kind of coming to a head. I
absolutely,
think it's I think it's a great prediction. I think the market is ready for that next level, and I think it's actually required. I think that there are obviously hundreds of millions of these devices across the country and around the world. Um, and I think the key to getting, more adoption is to, work on that user experience, work on that interactivity. I think interactive ads, we will start to see them, I believe, in
yeah.
2022. But to your point, the experience has to be great.
It has to be there. Yeah, exactly. And I think just to reiterate the point, I think there are two things happening. I think the UX community is becoming real, and I'm hoping that Amazon and Google solve those core problems. Between the two, I think we'll see a good perfect storm.
Well, I'm with you on that one. And Ahmed, it's always great to speak with you. Thank you for
Thank you, Pete.
joining us here
You
at
bet.
Voice
Thank
Global.
you.
And I
Thank you so
and I
much.
look forward to catching up with you at Voice Summit. I also look forward to the Voice Summit audio station that we're going to plug in on our site. And
Wonderful, wonderful.
thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Thank
Thank you,
you so
Pete.
much for that offer. We look forward to that, and that
You
will
bet.
be showing up, and you'll be able to pull down audio that's part of this event and part of all of our community happenings. For
Thank you,
now, I'm
Pete.
Pete Erickson. My guest has been Ahmed Bouzid, who is the CEO and founder of Witlingo. And check out what he's working on. I think the audio station thing's a very cool idea, but there's a lot of other things going on. I'm Pete Erickson, your host of Voice Global. Thank you so much for joining us.